Hi, I'm Philip Jareggi with Judicial Action Group, and I want to tell you a little story about something that happened recently up at the United States Supreme Court. You probably heard about it, and then also ask you to help out by calling your senator to ask for action. There's a lot happening right now across the nation, but this is something that's very important. It needs to be dealt with, and so I hope you will take action with us. I think you'll want to. You probably saw it in the news. This was back on March 4th when the United States Supreme Court was holding oral arguments in the June medical case, which is a pro-life case. There were a number of supporters from both sides outside. I was there at the time and was I think in the court when this event happened. But you probably saw the news reports about Senator Chuck Schumer, who's the minority leader in the Senate from New York, making a comment, making a speech at a press conference or a rally outside the U.S. Supreme Court. He crossed the line big time, and I want to explain why he crossed the line, when criticism of the court is proper, when it isn't, why it was not proper in this case, and then what needs to be done about it, what is being done about it, which I'm very happy about that Senator Hawley and others are taking action, but then what you can do and what we need to do to not let this go. So let me give you a little bit of background. So you remember it was the pro-life case. This was on March 4th of 2020. Outside on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court, there was a rally. Pro-abortion forces had a rally going, and it was demonic, to be honest with you. I don't know how else to say it. It was beyond raucous. It was demonic. It was crazy. So Senator Schumer steps up, and he's giving his speech and getting this already frothing mob going even more. I was in the court at one point. I could hear them outside, and it was horrendous. Okay, I'll just tell you, it was horrendous. But here's what he said. He stood on the steps outside of the U.S. Supreme Court with his back to the court, and he turned around and pointed at the court while talking to this mob, this pro-abortion, pro-death mob. He turned around and pointed, and he said, I want to tell you, this is a direct quote, he said, I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, by the way, didn't even have the respect to call them Justice Gorsuch or Justice Kavanaugh. As much as I disagree with Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, it's disrespectful to just say, hey, Ginsburg. I mean, Justice. So he didn't even have the decency as a senator to call them by their proper title. Not even their first, just last name, like they're on the football team or something. He turns around and points and says, I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions. That's what he said. A couple points I want to make about that, but first, here's what Chief Justice Roberts said, and keep in mind, Chief Justice Roberts is not the most conservative member on the court. That's an understatement. He's somewhere in the middle. Sometimes he votes the right way, sometimes he doesn't. He cares a lot about the court, which that can be a good thing, but I think sometimes too he worries too much about the image of the court rather than just doing the job of a justice or a chief justice, which is to rule according to the law. That's his job, not to look after the image of the court. Nevertheless, but Chief Justice Roberts, not the most conservative guy on the court. That's an understatement. But he said this. This was his response, which came, I think, within an hour or two after. It was that very day of Schumer's statement. Chief Justice Roberts said, justices know that criticism comes with the territory, but threatening statements of this sort, referring to Schumer's statement, threatening statements of this court from the highest levels of government are not only inappropriate, they are dangerous. All members of the court will continue to do their job without fear or favor from whatever quarter. Now, I can't see anything in Chief Justice Roberts' statement that I can disagree with. I think it was brilliant. He made the point, which is important, that justices know that criticism comes with the territory. And the point that I want to make too, it's very important for us to understand that we're not just saying that Chuck Schumer was wrong to criticize the court. I've criticized the court. You've criticized the court. Matter of fact, we should criticize the court when they abuse power. What Chuck Schumer did, he can criticize the court if he wants to. What he did is went well beyond that and was dangerous, which is even what Chief Justice Roberts said. He used the word dangerous. And it was dangerous because he talked in two ways about physical violence, or at least bordering on physical violence. He said, "You have released the whirlwind and you will pay the price." Now, that's not necessarily physical. But then he said, "You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions." By the way, too, what do you mean go forward with these decisions? They hadn't announced their decisions yet. This is a whole nother question, but almost makes me wonder, what is Chuck Schumer talking about? You know, saying if you go forward. Well, there's been no indication of what they would do one way or the other. So why would he talk about if you go forward, as though they had told somebody? It's another subject for another time. But he threatened them by talking about hitting them. And that's what Chief Justice Robert touched on when he talked about this being dangerous. And it is. You know, I was there. I know how stirred up that crowd was. It was a mob. It was a pro-abortion, pro-death. If you're a pro-lifer, they're the pro-death side. It's a pro-death mob. And he's out there stirring them up and pointing around at the justices within feet of where the justices are inside the building. By the way, that same type mob, when Kavanaugh was sworn in, they were literally violating the law up on the steps of the courtroom, banging and scratching and clawing at the bronze doors. So this is a crowd that's shown they get a little loopy. So here he is stirring them up, talking about hitting Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. So I want to distinguish again, it's very important that we understand, we don't want to make the statement Schumer was wrong to criticize the court. The court can and should be criticized. If the court abuses power, they should be criticized. The Senate should criticize them. If the court abuses power and tries to steal legislative power, then Senator Schumer would be fully correct to say, "Court, you're wrong. Don't do that. It's awful." As Senator Hawley or any other conservative, Senator Cruz, would be proper to do that. But that's not what happened here. Of course, there was physical violence. So it's really important to distinguish that. Second, Senator Hawley, who's one of our best senators in the United States Senate, introduced a resolution to censure Chuck Schumer, because this doesn't need to become the new normal. This needs to be something that is known and shown to be improper. So introducing a censure resolution is a great move. And I want to tell you who signed on to that. Thankfully, right now we have 15 co-sponsors of this resolution to censure Schumer. And here in a minute, I'm going to ask you to call the Senate switchboard and to ask both of your senators to also sign on to this censure resolution. So let me tell you who has signed on to sponsor or serve as co-sponsor. Of course, I mentioned Senator Josh Hawley. He's from Missouri. Mike Braun has signed on. He's from Indiana. Kevin Kramer from North Dakota. Steve Daines from Montana. Ted Cruz from Texas. He's a great one. Joni Ernst from Iowa. James Inhofe from Oklahoma. He's one of my favorites too. Mike Lee from Utah. Wonderful, wonderful senator. Kelly Loeffler from Georgia. Martha McSally from Arizona. David Perdue from Georgia. Ben Sass from Nebraska. Rick Scott from Florida. And Tim Scott from South Carolina. And also Tom Tillis. So that's 15 senators who've signed on to the censure resolution. We need more. So here's what I want to ask you to do. If you would write this number down and get ready. This is the number for the Senate switchboard, 202-244-3121. You can also just search anywhere, Senate switchboard, and that number will come up. But it's 202-244-3121. Now you have two United States senators, and I'm going to ask you to call twice, to call both of them, and ask them to sign on to Senator Hawley's resolution censuring Senator Schumer. Again, it's Senator Hawley has a resolution that's censuring Senator Schumer. Ask them to sign on as a co-sponsor, okay? I appreciate you. Please keep checking back for these videos, and if you have found this helpful, please forward it to your friends. Again, the more call we have to these Senate offices, the better. So if you find this helpful and you're taking action, send it to your list, send it to your friends, and ask them to do the same. Thanks a lot.